All right.
All right, we are in. I try to keep it easy, just like that.
Yeah.
What did you do today?
What did I do today? I got up, I read the news, which is thoroughly terrifying,
You,
especially in the United States, and you know what's going on in the world. Then I had a tutoring session, and then I did some comedy. I did some writing, and then there's a group. I did joke Zoom at
oh,
noon.
I missed it. I was
Okay.
playing volleyball.
Well, okay. I mean, you need to get out and do that. There's another, you know, I mean, there are joke Zooms every day except Sunday.
Yeah. You know, talking about watching the news, it's really terrifying to hear the news of the US if you are in the US, but for sure there are places that's more terrifying. But my point is the human mind and how we are designed not able to get all these issues around the world. It's too much. So how what do you think about this as someone who follow the news?
Well, one of the things is I don't really watch it. I would much rather read it. I think that's part of my way of avoiding some of it, but it also gives me the opportunity to absorb more, and I think to consider more of what's happening in the world, right? Because when you watch it on television, it's 60 minutes and it or 30 minutes, and it just keeps going, and it's one story then the next, and I mean, unless you're going to sit there with your remote and go back and review the stories, you know, when you read it, you have an opportunity to sit and think, you know. So it's when you watch it on television, the issue is time. When you're reading it either on the web or in a newspaper or something like that, the issue is space, right?
Yes.
So I would much rather have the time to consider what I'm reading. And you're right, it's not, and I didn't mean to imply that it's just what's happening in the United States, because the news that I'm reading about is certainly what's happening in Ukraine and what's happening in Afghanistan and what's happening in Yemen and what's happening in Taiwan. You know, and you know, 115 degrees in India, and just, you know, so I try to keep as many of those story balls in the air, you know, to juggle them and to consider them.
And that, as someone who watch the news, do you like have an opinion and an idea, or are you with one part and you always see the news and be like, oh, this is wrong, why didn't do this, these people could do it better? Or do you watch the news and from perspective that we really don't know what's going on?
I try to remain open. I have a point of view, there's no doubt about it. I have a way that I think things should be run. My bias is certainly toward treating everyone with respect and dignity and you know, equal under the law. So I come at it from that perspective, but I do try to keep in mind what is happening, you know, what's culturally relevant in other places. You know, I don't want to impose myself, but, you know, for example, when you talk about treatment of you know, gays, LGBTQ, or, you know, and you have a very conservative country that's run according to religious rules, you know, I find it very difficult to say, well, you know, that's the way they're running their government, so that's the way they have to do it. I don't see it that way. I say, why, you know, what is it that's getting in the way of you treating people equally? So I do have a point of view that way.
Which news do you think it's trustworthy or you watch?
Well, I usually read the New York Times pretty diligently every morning. And then there's a local New Jersey news, nj.com. I read that, but I also try to go to other sources that are, I mean, not as editorially liberal as that. So there's a website called realclearpolitics.com. I don't know if you've heard of it, but Real Clear Politics tends to lean to the right, and they have on their homepage links to editorial and other writers from across the spectrum. So I have my favorite conservative writers. I have my favorite conservative pollsters, in addition to, and there are liberals that I can't read. It's just it's too much. It's like I know what I'm going to get from them, and it's just too much. So I try to broaden myself.
I really hear too many good things about conservatives. I always hear bad things about Democrats.
Oh, do you?
Yes.
Who do you watch? Who do you read?
So I watch Joe Rogan. I don't. I try to follow all his podcasts. I try not to miss anyone.
Okay.
And I do believe that whatever you listen to or read, it's like a diet for the brain.
Yeah.
And it's like if you eat a good diet, your body will look good. So just for me, I believe that Joe Rogan podcast is one of the best diet for my brain. I enjoy it, and it also enhances my comedy in a very good way.
Yeah, I would say so. Well, part of it is that for being a history teacher for so long, I believed it to be my job to learn both sides of the story, to explain it at least to my students, and not to show a bias for one side or another. I mean, if students asked me, what do you believe or what do you think, I would tell them with the caveat that, look, this is the way that I think, but you can argue with me by saying this, and this. So if that's something that makes more sense to you, obviously you don't have to agree with me. And of course, I would never grade or evaluate a student based on, what their argument was. It was the defense of the argument that was more important. So I know there are a lot of people out there who don't think that teachers should have an opinion, or you're in front of impressionable children or teenagers, and you shouldn't say any of that. And I think that's just bunk. That's just it really. Of course you should. I'm the voter in the room. At least if I tell you this is who I'm voting for, this is why I'm voting for them. And if you disagree with me, here's the arguments that you can use. And if those make sense to you, do it. So, when you read that, and of course, as you say, it certainly enhances comedy. It brings comedy. You find the absurdity in it, and the hypocrisy. I mean, that's what we do. That's the fun part.
Yeah. And also, what's your, like, as history teacher, what's your philosophy about like human history, or where did we come from?
Well, I think it's really a matter of the way that we incorporate history into our individual lives, and how nations incorporate history into their culture. And it's that I think most nations would like to have a story where their citizens can be patriotic, where they can say, we do good things, or we follow these precepts, whether they're secular, whether they're religious, whatever they happen to be. And that's also, and that's not a terrible thing, but it's also where you run into trouble, because every country has terrible history. as part of it, and you can't wipe it away. History is history, and you have to see it for what it is, and you have to accept it for what it is. And you can't deny that certain things happened, or you can't say, well, you're just complaining, if there are certain groups, ethnic groups, religious groups that, have been mistreated, want justice. So that's the problem we have with history, is that I think too many people want to hide the uncomfortable part.
And it's also weird for me that, for example, Hitler or Germany, that there are people that still have hate for this generation, for history from another generation. That's also weird for me.
Well, it is, when you have situations like that, where you had an entire person running a country that affected the world so much, but you have people who are doing it on a smaller scale. I mean, not necessarily the killing and things like that, but the sense that we are right, you are wrong. If you oppose us, you are a traitor, or worse. So it just makes it more difficult to talk with people when they don't see that. It can be very frustrating. I always found that to be the most frustrating part, is when somebody's, well, but I don't agree with you. It's like, well, you can't disagree with the facts, so.
Yeah, but also, what do you think? Where did humans come from? What do you think? Because some people think like we were monkeys, the evolution, which is, I
Right.
think it makes the most sense, at least for me.
Yes, evolution seems to be the theory that best explains. There's the fossil record. There are, there are gaps and things like that, but we seem to have a sense of where things came from and where they're moving. I don't subscribe to religious theories. Belief is belief. What's important to me is what somebody knows. What do you know? And you know something by researching it or testing it. What do we kind of know, sort of know? But I'm more comfortable with what we know than what we believe or what we have faith in. But so that's my bias. I mean, I certainly can understand people who have religious faith and live religious lives. I mean, I have plenty of religious friends and things, but in terms of your question about where we came from, where history started, I would say evolution does the better job.
Yeah, the most logical job. And I also love the idea of evolution, because it pays hard work and research. It's not based on miracles or something written. I don't know. I want to ask you, because you said you have to go to a live mic. So for how many minutes you can be with me?
Oh, I can, I mean, if you however long you normally would.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, we're fine.
I also wanted to tell you that some people think that we get wiped out, like there were reset, and the biggest proof for this is like the pyramid, that still nobody knows what happened. We don't know how they built them. So many people think that there is a reset that happened to humans.
So that every few thousand years, something happens that people are wiped out and we start over again. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Well, we do have a record of that, I mean, for a long time, it's funny, being of the age that I am, what we used to learn about the dinosaurs and about what killed the dinosaurs was all theory until, I guess it was the 1980s or something like that, when uh, scientists found the impact crater, of the asteroid, and it's like, oh, well, that explains it. So it wasn't just, they died out because they ate all the food or whatever it had. There's a real reason for it. You have this huge asteroid that smacks into the earth and causes,
Yeah.
200-foot high waves and dust in the air. So it has happened, that we've had these, natural phenomenon. I mean, I guess part of your question, might lead to extraterrestrials, right, coming here. I mean, how could humans, given the technology, build the pyramids, or the pictographs, right, that are carved into
Yeah.
the tops of, that you can only see from 500 feet up in the air, and they were built 5,000 years ago. So that is intriguing. It's why would you build something like that you could only see? So could you get in the air, or were you signaling for somebody else? So yeah, I mean, that is interesting. I don't, people ask, do you believe in extraterrestrials or life on other planets? I mean, why not? Of course. I mean, I think it's rather selfish to think that we're the only we're the only sentient beings, in the universe.
But it's also crazy that like we don't have answers for the pyramid.
Right. Well, but yet, that's because when you think about the things that we know now that we didn't know 1,000 years ago or 500 years ago, and people came up with all kinds of wild explanations for psychological phenomena. I mean, I was just reading today about the Salem witch trials. Are you familiar with the Salem witch trials in the United States in the late 1600s, in a part of Massachusetts where these women were accused of being witches, and many of them were killed. And I'm sure some of it has to do with mental illness. I mean, or there's a theory that the grain, which had been subject to humidity and water, grew essentially, LSD on it. And the people ate the grain and they had hallucinations or whatever. So there are things that we didn't know that we found out. And I'm assuming that at some point we'll find out about the pyramids. Maybe, okay, so maybe the people who built the pyramids will come back, right? It's like,
Yeah.
we got you.
But I don't know how they will prove that it's their pyramid. It's like they don't have any contract for the land.
Maybe they had
it's not their land anymore.
Right. Well, you would think that an advanced, civilization might be able to show us, or maybe they're just having fun.
But many people say that, for example, advanced civilizations, it's like us, but they already find a way to trick the monkey body. Like there are like, which is what we are doing now. Like now we can do different hip surgeries. We can make nice teeth. So with time, we can maybe even change this body, all of it, and find something even better to be in.
Well, we have the beginnings of that. We have the technology known as CRISPR. You familiar with that? CRISPR, which is a way of, in a very crude way, of of synthesizing human, or living matter. It's being used. I was just reading an article in the food section that using CRISPR, this is how you can create, in a sense, substances that taste like meat, but they use plants, or you use cells. I mean, it's not anything. It's not, I mean, it's one thing, if you've had a veggie burger, or you've had a meatless burger, or things like that, but this is just made out of cells. So, think of the applications for that. You could create medicines, you can create food, you can create, what if there's a way to figure out, okay, what goes wrong that causes cancer? What goes wrong in, cell division? So we're always kind of at the beginning of what will eventually become. So it takes a while. It takes a long time.
I was just wondering, in the US education history, do you focus more on the history of the US? Because the US is even too small. Like some people make jokes that like there are trees that are older than the US.
Yes, it's
Even
a very young
animals. So I don't know if there is animals, maybe some whale. Anyway, but
turtles.
What?
Turtles?
Turtle, yeah, there is turtle older than the US. So do you only teach about the US, or do you teach about the world, or do you try to teach the history about humans and civilizations, which is I find the most fascinating?
As you go through schooling in the United States, there are courses on United States history, on world history, on different civilizations, on the natives who were here before the Europeans came. There's not as much. In other words, a lot of the focus is on the United States, or in the state in which you live. In other words, every state certainly sets aside a school year where in your history class you're learning the history of your state. But we certainly teach about what happens in other countries, in other cultures, whether it's Europe, the Middle East, Africa. It's not as much as it should be. But and by the time you get into high school, by the time you're in high school, you're doing mostly US history.
And how how honest do you find the information that's giving to the student? And also, do you feel that the people that gave this education are trying to change something in people, or are they just being honest and trying to do it for good, 100%?
Well, what's happening now is that there are states and politicians in the United States that are trying to affect the curriculum in what will certainly result in a negative negative education, or what they're really trying to do is to lessen the focus on racial issues, or gender issues, or gay rights, and they're trying to focus only on the parts of US history that will create more patriotic citizens, and essentially are saying that that this is a land of opportunity, and if people got in the way, it was individuals, it wasn't really the country that did that, which again is complete and utter bunk. But history does that. I mean, that's the way that many of the textbooks are written now tend to lean more toward the left, toward more toward the liberal side. They tend to glorify a little bit more, government involvement. So and now what's happening is the right wing, the conservatives are trying to shape it another way. And so I don't know that there are any real school systems that are teaching just the facts. I mean, that's very difficult, but there are many of them that are making an effort to incorporate a more balanced view.
So it's also maybe depend on the state.
It does, and that's part of the problem in American education, is that there is no national standard. Every state can determine what children learn, essentially how long they learn it, and what books they use in which to learn it. So, for example, in New Jersey, where I live, in high school, you take 2 years of United States history. In most other states, you only take 1 year. And I don't really see how you can teach in a satisfactory fashion the whole of United States history from September to June. You can't. I mean, I find it difficult to do it in 2 years. So we have people, loads of people, and people who become leaders. They become legislators, governors, presidents, leaders of corporations who say things that make absolutely no sense from a historical point of view. But either that's what they took from their class, or that's what they learned, or whatever it is. So it's again, for somebody like me who studied far more history than the average person, it's very frustrating to hear people say that and to be in a position of authority where they can influence people.
So which state would you give the most credit? New Jersey, because they teach it for 2 years.
Well, New Jersey does have, I mean, when you do the studies of student achievement, and the curriculum that they use, I would say that New Jersey, certainly, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Alaska, Massachusetts, these are the states that tend to produce the best results as measured by tests and curriculum.
Yeah, that's good. I also sometimes, as a teacher, you may have students that never pass and they are even too old and they keep coming back.
Right.
How do you sometimes try to push them, or what do you think is wrong with this kind of student?
Well, first of all, what's happened in the United States since I was in school is that fewer and fewer students are actually held back, or repeat a grade, because that tends to have far more negative effects on their self-esteem and on the way that they, it doesn't make sense to have somebody who should be in high school in 7th grade, but the issue is people learn in different ways, and not everybody has the intellectual capacity to perform at a high level, and some people don't have the capacity to perform well in school at any level. And we have to come to grips with that. And I think in some ways we have. And I'm not talking about people who have some kind of a syndrome or a deficit, or something that's that that a doctor could identify. It's just, I've had students that they have trouble reading, they need more time, which is something we don't necessarily have. They need a different type of instruction, or they need to learn it in a different way. But if they're put in a class of 20 or 25 students and they're expected to learn the curriculum as the school district writes it, you're going to have bad outcomes. So most of the time what I do is, and most of the teachers that I know will tailor, homework or assignments to what they can do. And that's what you can do. And, I mean,
So I mean, like, if you have a student who is struggling, you would tell him that don't worry, maybe this is just not for you. You can.
well, you would say you would have to figure out, first of all, if there's something classifiable or medical or something. So you do have experts in the school who can do that, but absent any other type of issue, you talk to the parents and you talk to the child and you say, okay, look, here's what you need to do. Here's how you can do it. It takes more effort and it takes more time because now they have to come see you more, because they might not be getting it in a class, right? Classes tend to run very quickly, right? Either you have a teacher who is, might be lecturing for a little while and students are getting together, but if they couldn't read it the night before, or they just have no idea what's going on, what are they doing? They're just kind of sitting, and so they have to come and see me, or they have to make an effort to achieve in a different way. And so we do what we can.
Yeah,
And
because even sorry, I interrupted you.
no, that's okay.
You want to finish?
No, I'm just saying we do what they can, and they shouldn't be under a situation where they're expecting an A or a B or anything like that. It's just, you're not at that level, so that's more what you have to talk about to people is, look, you're going to pass, but
Yeah, I don't know. I was the type of student who, for me, like, if you give me 100 or 51, it's the same. As long as I used to get crazy. Like, I had usually girls are smarter in school, or they care more. Like, I remember at university, I had girls that would cry if they didn't give 90s, like if they're in the 80s, which is very good,
right.
not excellent. For me, good or excellent, it's the same. We passing, baby. I don't care.
No, I was the same way. I didn't. I mean, people look at me as a teacher and say, "Oh, well, you must have been a great student." I was okay. I knew the stuff. It just, I didn't necessarily work as hard as I could, and reading was a bit of a chore. Like I had to read. Sometimes I have to read things twice, and who wants to read a textbook twice, right? So like you, I was okay with a B. I didn't.
Yeah, even see. I hope it's okay to ask you this question. I leave the risky questions for the end. So we already at least had good time. But it's, I mean, I don't think it's, I'm just being extra careful also. But if time brings you back, would you do teaching? Would you want to be a teacher, or would you, like when you are at this age, you were like, oh, if time come back, I would have done this instead of teaching?
What do you mean? What do you mean when I come?
If time bring you back, let's say you become 15 years old again,
Oh,
would you do teaching, or would you do something else?
I would probably want to do something else, but only because it's a function of I've done that, like I've done teaching. And it was great and it was fun. And if I had to do it over again, I would enthusiastically. If somebody said, oh, you have to come back and you have to teach for another, 20 years. Great. But if I'm given another opportunity to do something else, I would do something else. It's like that question, if you had to do it all over again, would you do it the same way? And my answer is no. I'd do it differently. I would do it I want to be more interesting. It's not interesting to do the same things all over again, right?
So what do you have something in mind you would like to do?
Well, I mean, I'm doing performing now. I mean, I tried that, when I was in my 20s. I did some comedy and acting and things like that. I might, given that opportunity to do that again, I might give that more effort and try that. But I don't know. I don't, I, in the 90s, when I was just entering my 40s and the computer revolution started, I took to that. I took to a number of things, creating web pages or learning code. I mean, on the one hand, it can be very boring, hunched over a keyboard, all day, typing code and things like that. But I enjoyed the possibilities. What is it that we can do, and how can we make this a more accessible tool for people? So I would think about those things. I used to think about politics. Maybe if I had a chance to rewind, and not know what I already know about politics and how terrible, it can be, I would do that.
So who do you think now is the best to be the president of the US? Because they say that Joe Biden has his brain is not working anymore. That's what we hear.
I mean, Joe Biden is fine. I mean, he's an older man, and he's got a thankless job that is pressure from the time you wake up in the morning. And everybody criticizes you, and everybody, wants you to do things. And your brain doesn't work as fast. And, and so I can certainly imagine, what the rest of the world sees, or, people put together these videos on, on TikTok or whatever it is about, all the silly things that he's said, and him thinking, and it makes him look like a doddering old man. I think he's doing a good job. I agree with a lot of the things that he's trying to do. I mean, obviously, we have some, the economy and inflation, but if not, so you're saying if not Joe Biden, who
I love Tulsi. Do you know Tulsi?
Oh, Tulsi Gabbard?
She's hot. Just for that, I want her to be the president.
Well, she's interesting because she calls herself a Democrat, but she's what we would call a conservative Democrat. That right now a lot of people in the Democratic Party wouldn't like that, but I mean, she certainly, it's possible for her to do that. There's Pete Buttigieg, who's the Secretary of Transportation, and the first married gay man in the cabinet. I mean, because of my political leanings, I'm not really considering what's going on the Republican side. I just I just disagree too much with certainly Donald Trump, who I find to be vile and terrible, but even some of the other conservatives.
Do you feel that it's okay to censor Donald Trump?
To do what?
Censoring him, because he cannot go to Twitter, he cannot.
Right. I generally lean toward allowing free speech. So there were Supreme Court cases in the starting in the 20th century, but certainly more so in the 1940s, 50s, 60s, 70s, about what kind of speech is protected, and the Supreme Court generally said that, unless your speech is going to lead to some kind of violence, whether individually, what's called the fighting words doctrine, right? If you talk to somebody and you call them names and they hit you, your speech is not necessarily protected. But other than that, it's up to us to point out that what you're saying is factually wrong. But, does Donald Trump really need Twitter? 80% of Republicans believe that the election was stolen. And it wasn't. So you got 80% of Republicans believing in something is complete hogwash. So he doesn't need to be on Twitter. But I don't think that people should be censored. You have people on college campuses who are saying, oh, we don't want that person speaking because they might offend people. So what? Don't go.
But because you don't like Donald Trump, and I understand, do you have any fear that he's going to be the president again, or worry?
I do. It's certainly possible. I was one of the people who was completely wrong about him in 2016. I said, oh my goodness, how can somebody like this ever be nominated, much less elected? And he ran the table on that one. But I think he also showed while he was president just exactly why there were those of us who were saying, my goodness, how could you elect somebody like that? So it is certainly possible that he could be elected again. I think that having gone through 4 years of Donald Trump, there are many people, including people who voted for him the first time, that would say, no, we don't want that again. Because what's happened here in the United States is politically, the Republicans don't necessarily need Donald Trump anymore. They use Donald Trump and his ideas and the people who supported him to get things done. Well, now they've gotten those things done, and those ideas are accepted. So you don't need Donald Trump to say those ideas. You can have a more polished politician, like the governor of Florida, or the governor, or a senator or something, who can say those things. And now it's okay to say them. When Donald Trump was saying them, people went, oh my heavens, what is he saying? How can he do that? But now he's made these ridiculous things mainstream. So you don't need him. You could get something done by, having a mainstream politician who might be a little bit more acceptable to more people. But it certainly will be, it'll be interesting. I don't know. Biden is saying he's going to run again.
Oh my God, really?
He's been saying that. Could he certainly change his mind?
But do you think that's even normal? Because he is, like they say that his brain has issues. Like, do you think it's normal? Like, maybe he will not even survive this time. And even if he survived this time, do you think it's wise to elect someone who the people that almost will select him, their brain works even better than him?
That's true. That's what people are weighing. It's certainly something that I'm looking at. If he's healthy, and if he can put up with the job, and the doctors say, yes, he's in good shape, then why not? See, the thing is that as soon as he says he's not running, he almost immediately loses any kind of influence. So he really, that's the way the system works in the United States. We have elections in November where we're electing the entire House of Representatives and 33 senators. So if the Republicans take over the House and the Senate, not a whole lot's going to get done in the next 2 years anyway, because Biden was, he'll propose something and the Congress will say no, and they'll try to pass something and he won't sign it. So, what he he's not going to have that much power anyway. If he says he's not going to run, he becomes almost irrelevant, because then the discussion will be, okay, who's the Republican, which Republicans or which Democrats are in the best position to succeed him. So he's got to keep people guessing. So he still got, I would say, until next March or April to make that final decision.
Oh,
Not necessarily for the Republicans, but for the Democrats, because if Democrats know that he's not running and they want to run, they have to organize themselves. They have to organize a campaign. They have to start raising money. They have to get people in the states to form committees, re-election committees. They have to start making signs, and they have to start making videos, and but I mean, the big thing is you got to raise money, because it costs you about $1 billion to run for president.
oh my God.
Yeah, it's extraordinary. It's extraordinary. If you're going to run for president and go through the whole campaign, it's going to cost about $1 billion. So, you have to raise that.
From your pocket, or you raise it from your fans?
Well, if you're wealthy enough, then you can bankroll it. We had a candidate in the last election named Mike Bloomberg. I don't know if you've heard of him. He was the mayor of New York for a while, and he was a multi-billionaire. Wow. And he said that he would finance his own campaign. I mean, it didn't last very long, but so if Pete Buttigieg or Tulsi Gabbard wants to run for president, they're not going to have that money.
Yeah.
So they need to form a committee that will raise money and send out emails and form, committees. And then they have to be on TikTok, and they have to be on Instagram. And, it's all going to be done on social media, because that's where people are. So Biden has, like I said, until next spring. And if he goes ahead, if he goes ahead, these other people might run against him as well. Maybe they see him as vulnerable and say, well, look, I love Joe, but I think I can do a better job. So he has until then to figure that out. So next year at this time, we'll probably know who's running for president in the United States. It's ridiculous. It's just.
So who did you vote for last time, and who are you planning to vote for next elections?
I voted for Joe Biden.
Oh,
and I would vote for him again if he was the Democratic nominee. It's like I said, I try to look at what the candidates are at the beginning of the election, and I try to figure out, what they believe in. But quite honestly, like I said before, the Republican Party is far too conservative for me in terms of what they believe, what they want to do in the country, and the people who represent them. So unless they nominate a more moderate Republican, not that you can find too many of those, it would be very difficult for me to vote for a Republican for president. I mean, I voted for Republicans locally, New Jersey, things like that, but they've just become way too conservative for me. Things like abortion, oil, the climate. I mean, we already have legalization of marijuana in many states. So
yeah,
I think some of the Republicans are not necessarily supportive of that, but okay.
Like, to be honest, through talking to you, I had so much fun, and I also loved so much the way you live, the way you take things. It's so valuable when I see people like you are not married to any idea, and even if you are in one part or with something, you would say the bad things. You don't like lean to the end. You are open to all the possibilities. Even you are teacher, and you say that not everyone works with the system. Some people, they are slow. So I feel like we need more teachers like you. We need more humans like you. It's really cool if someone loves Joe Biden and someone loves Donald Trump. It's this competition makes people even works harder, as long as there are people who thinks like you and view the point like you. So it was really pleasure to have you and talk to you, and I'm just happy that you accepted my invitation.
Well, sure. Thank you, Muad. Yeah, it was I mean, I didn't even know you had a podcast, but then I looked it up and I said, wow, you've talked to everybody. That's that's wonderful. No, it's been a pleasure, and I really enjoyed the questions that you asked. You know, I mean, most of what we know from each other is through performing and comedy, and you know, you've made quite a splash for yourself completely on Zoom, you know, and you know, people know who you are. You're like, you know, you're like any celebrity that has one name, right? Muad. Well, Muad, of course, everybody knows Muad, right? So uh so that's terrific. But you know, I'm glad, and I'm glad that you pointed that out. Like I said, I try to be open and accepting, and I have a very difficult time with people who you know shut down or will not engage or will not consider the other side, even if we can't agree. Because I think what's happening now is that people say, if I don't agree with you, you must be a problem, right? Or you must be an enemy or something like that.
Yes.
And I will not do that. And in some ways, that's why I'm doing comedy also. Is we need to laugh a little bit more, and we need to you know, consider other points of view and smile and get along with each other.
Yeah.
So anyway, thank you so much for having me.
That's beautiful. So do you use like Instagram or?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. It's Bob Grundfest. I'm on Facebook. It's Bob Grundfest. I made it easy for for everybody. So if you just look for my name, Twitter also, I think I changed that one to Bob Grundfest. So yeah, so I try to do the social media to the extent that I can, and you know, it's fun. I mean, it's fun to connect with people. Look, you know, you're living in a different part of the world, and here we are. We know something about each other, and you're also part of that group, you know, that gets together all the time and does funny things. And so what's happened? What's with you? Do you have any plans
So
to?
basically, I'm going to Canada hopefully soon.
Okay.
But my vision, and I also love that I have a plan and I know where I want to be. I want to be in Texas.
I mean,
I want to work for the Joe Rogan. He opened new comedy store in Texas. I don't know if you heard about it.
oh, okay. Yeah. Is it
They,
in Austin? Is it in
yeah,
Austin? Yeah.
yeah, in Austin. He's still building. The building will finish by the end of the year. He want to celebrate the new year there, and he's
Oh, no.
bringing too many people. So that's one part, and the other part is like the Joe Rogan is the person who I look up to. I learn a lot from him, and I was able to reprogram my mind through his podcast and to get even to know comedy. And
Right.
it's just, I even see him in my dream too many times that I'm in Texas and doing comedy with him. So that's the
Good.
vision. Now we go to Canada, and second step will be Texas, Austin.
So one step at a time. Well, it's great. No, it's great to have a plan. It's great to have a plan, and it's great to know what you want to do. And you know, if there's anything that I can do to help you, or you ever need you need a place to flop for a while. We got an extra bed here, so you can always come and visit.
Thank you. I really appreciate you. And just being a teacher, it tells a lot that I really like teachers and are so nice. And even when I meet them, and also you do also comedy. So that's double sweet. That's 2 buckets of sugar. So sweet.
Yeah, right. I had an audience every day.
And I also wish you good luck for your mic tonight. And
thank you so much.
I hope to see you in this Zoom mics, but for sure one day in real life I want to meet you.
Yes, that would be great. Well, you have to stop by New York,
yeah,
New Jersey,
for sure.
Island,
One
so
day.
everybody can meet you and put you up on the stage and do that. Yes, so you let us know when that happens.
Sure.
Anyway, thank you very much for having me. It was a terrific.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.